Well, the first thing that you'll see, I mean, this is nothing new. And there's actually a slide that says a new look at an old problem. I mean, heart surgery always have had, problems with obviously bleeding. That's part of the game with the heparin we give. And we do have problems with either tamponade, when there's a lot of clots in the pericardium in the first few hours, but you got to take back the patients. Later on, you can have pericardial effusions, which is also a problem. You may need to tap them, etc. And we also have hemothoraces in the first few hours or pleural effusions down the road. So this is nothing new. This is why since old age, we always put chest tubes in. And what happened is that because some of us investigators looked at the problem in a different way, we kind of tried to tackle the problem of optimal drainage. And we just put together, I mean, it's a retained blood complications, or we could name the 4 that I just named to you, but I mean, it's a composite endpoint of complications related to poor drainage.
Retained blood is more than an inconvenience. Many of the common morbidities, and sometimes even mortality, is directly related to not evacuating blood properly after the initial surgery. And so, in fact, we've been dealing with retained blood ever since there has been surgery. Anytime blood is left behind in the body no longer owns it. It regards it as a foreign body, and it treats it with the autoimmune system in the same way it treats infection. So blood, in fact, is a toxic waste, and what our technology does is remove the toxic waste from the body much more effectively. And in doing that, the blood cannot cause the problems that it is causing up to this time. And those problems are very common. For example, pleural effusions, which is water around the organs, especially the lungs or the heart, is very common. Maybe half of patients have pleural effusions after surgery. And of course there's several causes, but one of the causes is blood. We know now also that post-operative atrial fibrillation, what we call POAF, is also triggered by retained blood. Now, POAF is a complex problem. There are many possible other triggers, including things like the age of the patient and obesity and the age of the heart and so on. But we know that if you look at 2 groups of patients, one of whom has a dry thorax after the surgery and one of whom has left blood behind, in the group where there's blood left in the chest, the post-operative atrial fibrillation rate is much higher in that group. And equally, if you remove the blood, as we have done in our research, the post-operative atrial fibrillation rate goes down. So think about retained blood as a kind of root cause of many problems. It's not solely responsible for one thing or another, and it lives in an environment of risk with many risk factors. So what we teach our sales reps is to talk about it like alcohol and driving. If you don't drink, you cannot be promised that you will not die in a car crash. You could die for many other reasons, including stupidity. But when you drink and drive, the risk of death or injury goes up dramatically. So after surgery, there's always inherent risk from many factors, but with retained blood, those risk factors become much worse. And if you don't drink and drive, or if you remove the retained blood, then the risk decreases for the patient. And in all of our studies, and we have many published manuscripts now, a lot of patients have received our device, almost 50,000, we see a dramatic improvement in the patient conditions after their initial surgery. We see less post-op AFib, we see less pleural effusions, we see less pericardial effusions. And so what started out as a tool, convenience, if you like, for surgeons, has turned into this phenomenon that we call retained blood syndrome, which is now a composite of endpoints. Retained blood syndrome is any of these possible complications which is related to the single root cause of retained blood.